evening, boa tarde. Welcome to this WSD talk. The WSD talks are an initiative of the Western Sephardic Diaspora Roadmap Project. É uma iniciativa, estas WSD talks, deste projeto que é o Western Sephardic Diaspora Roadmap, a project that is developed by the CHAM, the Center for the Humanities, and the Digital Humanities Lab of the Faculdade de Ciências Sociais e Humanas da Universidade Nova de Lisboa. This is the third and last WSD talk of this year. And our guest today is Hervé Baudry. Hervé is a senior researcher at the CHAM, Center for the Humanities, and he is the principal investigator of the project, The Relevance of Book Expurgation in the Procedures of the Portuguese Inquisition, a systematic and individualized approach. And recently, he received funding by the Fundação para a Ciência e Tecnologia to develop the project transcrever os processos da Inquisição Portuguesa. And this talk today will be exactly about this project, and it is entitled Highway to Hell, a Inquisição, o Judaísmo e a Revolução Digital, uma apresentação do projeto Traprinc. Hervé will talk in English, he will do this presentation in English, and dou então a palavra aqui ao Hervé.
Ok, olha, não vou começar em inglês para dizer obrigado, pronto. Pronto, olha, well, welcome all, and thank you very much for attending this session. I hope it will be interesting for you. So thank you for your presence here, and to Carla, of course, for this opportunity to communicate about the project to be launched within only 1 month. So we're near it. From the point of view of a personal itinerary, what is it here if not itineraries? My first publication was printed in 1985 in Portugal. It was about the new Christian Dr. Estevão Rodrigues de Castro, best known for his poetry. I was interested at the time in the reader he was of Theophrastus Paracelsus, an author listed in the indexes of prohibition. To introduce the subject, I wrote with some naivety of a novice the following. I'm translating from French. Far from a heretical Europe, the Portuguese government erected solid barriers against everything that came from the north of Europe. And then I quoted Maximiano Lemos. Since my master's degree, my investigations were focused on the history of 16th century dissident medicine. And here is the quotation. The first things that offer themselves to the consideration of the historian are the expulsion of the Jews and the establishment of the Inquisition. And after this quotation, I specified that very early on, the destiny of medicine in Portugal is linked to the evolution of the Sepharad community installed in the Iberian Peninsula since the first centuries of the Christian era. Well, nothing new here. The introductory part ended with these words, last quotation. When in these times of suspicion and generalized control, the imperative of intellectual conformity and submission to the dominant faith reigned, everyone had to face the alternative, unassuming or escaping. A few years later, I returned to the attack. Rodrigues de Castro had gained fame at the University of Pisa, Italy. The very well-known physician Fortunio Licetti published against him in 1636 a libel of rare anti-Semitic violence, the Vervecados Libri Duo. So I apologize for this overly long self-presentation, but it allows me to open up the then foreseen horizon where borders, controls, escape, repression were clearly outlined. That is what today is about. You know well, starting with Carla, that to talk about the fate of a Sepharad of that time is to start with the story of barriers. Unsurprisingly, the biographical information about the ancestors, that is the title of the first chapter of her latest book, Portuguese Jews in America, comes from inquisitorial processes. I'll begin to share my screen now for the first image of the day. So please tell me if everything is okay. No, it's not okay.
It's
yes,
okay.
but the site's not okay because it should be the first image. It's not the first one. This, yeah, now it should be okay. Are you seeing angels?
Yes.
So it's okay. We can begin. So in Sepharad genealogy, family trees branches are often multiplied under the aegis of the sword and the olive tree. The device of the Inquisition, you can see in Latin, comes from Psalm 74:22. I say it in English, what you can read, the beginning and the two other verses. O God, rise up and defend your cause. Remember how fools mock you all day long. Well, unashamedly, my paper is entitled Highway to Hell, as you know, Inquisition, Judaism, and Digital Revolution. Of course, something is lacking, so let's go. Well, let's be short about this. But just to begin, don't forget to see the lyrics down the image, at the bottom of the image. As you know, these lyrics are extracted from a top song by AC/DC. What interested me is that they bring together the antagonistic spaces, the promised land and hell, through which human societies for thousands of years have lived and died, imagined or repressed or being repressed, etc. I don't want to popularize the theme of our discussion today in this way, but just to launch it within the special dynamics that determine Carla's project by summoning the forces at play. That is, it is a struggle of faiths with different visions of the afterlife, but in parentheses, the minority ones giving evidence of resistance, of the strength of the dominant ideological and institutional powers to impose the Christian vision over the others. Another parenthesis, I would remind that Jewish conception of the Sheol, as you know, translatable into the common grave of humans, is indifferent to the idea of salvation. Close the parenthesis. And finally, of the tragic dimension of the exercise of this power that is imposed by the ecclesiastical and the civic arms. Working in such fields is not indifferent. In my opinion, the researcher's duty of objectivity, always placed between understanding and sympathy, does not prevent him, the researcher, from feeling closer to Sebastian Castellion or Spinoza than to the Spanish Cardinal Inquisitor Quiroga or the Portuguese one, Mascarenhas, both authors of indexes of forbidden and expurgated books in the 16th and 17th centuries. In another register, Louis Malassolin, who published an abridged version of what I'm going to talk, indicates two extremes of the common approach to inquisitorial phenomena. and I quote him, "Counting up the stakes of the auto d'affaires is good. To penetrate the mental functioning of those who light them is better." Okay, but between these extremes, the fundamental objective of our project, Trapping, is in the medium or long term to bring to everyone's attention every single dossier of this tragedy. Obviously, there is here with the rock music no fun, no desire for thrilling by quoting this written and sounding rock band, but a way to into a multi-secular history that, in the name of orthodoxy and homogeneity, has deeply marked Portuguese, and not only, society and overseas societies and free and non-free people. So let's have a look at the spaces covered where the borders are determined by the inquisitorial jurisdiction. Here you have, at the local level, the institution producing processes, and not only, far from this, of course, after some decades, they have been established in 3 courts only: Coimbra, north, Lisbon center, and Évora, the south of continental Portugal. What is interesting here is that the Portuguese National Archive, o Arquivo Nacional da Torre do Tombo, ANTT, is the place where almost all the cases are kept within the fund of the Tribunal of the Holy Office, the Court of the Holy Office. They were produced from 1536 onwards, but some trials had been opened before this date. The list of subseries you can see, SF in blue. This list of subseries recalls the ephemeral existence in the first decade of the establishment of the Holy Office of 3 courts, Lamego, Porto, Tomar. But it's worth noting the 4th one, Goa. A few years after, established a few years after the continental ones in 1561, in this colonial enclave that returned to India in 1961. Hence, the necessary globalizing view of the Portuguese Empire according to our inquisitorial geography. I have not read Angela Barreto Xavier's recently published book, which is entitled Religion and Empire in Portuguese India, Conversion, Resistance, and the Making of Goa. A book in which she shows how the twin drives of conversion and colonization in Portuguese India resulted in a variety of outcomes, ranging from negotiation to passive resistance to moments of extreme violence. So the local Inquisition activity, the Goans one, abolished 9 years before the European one, was of course a decisive organism in this story. However, this 4th pillar, Goa, with the 3 others, is marked by a difference from the others. The very numerous original processes have disappeared, although we have concrete information about their actions. Hence, for Trapping, for our project, an initial limitation of his endeavor. We can see on the map 2 world areas. One, east, less, in the east, Goa's jurisdiction over eastern space, that is India, the east coast of Africa, and Macau. This map shows other territories that did not escape inquisitorial activity, that is, of course, Brazil, but also the west coast of Africa, the Angola. The crimes falling under this jurisdiction were prosecuted by the Lisbon court. So transcribing the processes, which is about our project, transcribing the processes leads us to reassume Betancourt, Francisco Betancourt and Philip Havic's wish in 2003. Speaking not directly of the inquisitorial proceedings, but of the papers presented at the Paris Colloquium in 2003, they said, "We hope that these texts, this article to be published, will provide ideas and clues to readers interested in this theme to tread new paths and return to the sources." And I would emphasize the end of the phrase now, looking beyond their persecutory dimension to reconstruct experiences erased from the collective memory. But I would ask, with the ultimate 21st century tools, how shall we do this? And I'm coming now to the technical aspects of the project. As you will see, I address this aspect in a very succinct manner, as these are rather technical procedures. But since it is technique that has made possible this project, I will refer the possible aspects of your interest to the discussion. TrapRink is an exploratory project, which means that it's a first step. Their technical objective is to provide a model of handwritten text recognition, HTR, for future mass transcription of the digitized files. The basic archival corpus, the documents, has a very large volume. The balance between cataloged and digitized processes is as follows, as you can see. On the left, the total of registers, present one, and on the right, the digitized ones, which are our files for the project. So about 18,000 digitized cases are more than enough to fulfill this first phase. With an average of 200 pages per process, the National Archives digitized background, which represent 45% of the total of 40,000 on the left, makes it possible to extract 5,000 pages to transcribe and create an artificial intelligence model to recognize the handwritten trial records. Transcribus is the platform where the paleographical transcription and model training work will be carried out by a team of 12 excellent active members plus 4 consultants. Let's say that we will lay the foundations of a large-scale undertaking in material, chronological, geographical, and of course, human terms. One last remark on this aspect. Thousands of files have been read since the 19th century, studied, and have provided so far an extraordinary base of information on various aspects that reveal, among others, the socio-cultural reality in societies marked by the inquisitorial grip. A very small part of these documents have been completely edited. Except Goa, a provisional assessment can put forward that a maximum of 25% of the total number of records were explored from the inside. The future HTR model, produced by TrapRink in Transcribus, will open the way to public and universal legibility of each of these cases that counted for so much in the lives of those whose figure remained projected between the lines of a criminal procedure dominated by secrecy. So now I want to come to the third point on the menu, Judaism. The Portuguese Inquisition, mobilities, and Judaism. I wanted to approach in a more thematic way a part of the processes of the trials, the court trials, that Inquisition moved throughout almost 3 centuries. Hence, once again, sorry to repeat, but bis repetita placent, my gratitude to Carla for providing a place in her project to another one in which she will be a great contributor. From this point of view, other figures are needed to describe the specificity of the Inquisition court's actions in the areas indicated. The cases we're talking about are those that were opened against tens of thousands of people of all sexes, ages, and professions, but very largely not of all religions, since we are dealing with the crime of Judaism. What you can see on the image is the reference work that serves as the basis for the practice of the inquisitors since the 14th century. It's the Directorium Inquisitorium, written by the Aragonese theologian Nicolas Emmerich around 1376, and first printed in Sevilla, Andalusia, a little over a century later, around 1500. The second decisive date on this point of the prints, of the books, of the referential readings, is 1578, when Francisco Peña gives the first reprint greatly extended by his own commentaries. So you have both title pages of the first print and its re-edition with the scholias of Peña. Both title pages, on the first printed edition on the left, Seville, just to remember that Seville was the city where the first auto da fe took place on February 6, 1481, as well as the last Spanish auto da fe also, exactly 3 centuries later, in 1781. The last one being in Mexico in the 19th century for the Hispanic countries. On the right, you have the copy, the title page of copy of Emmerich Peña, of which provenance is interesting, comes from the Jesuit College of Augsburg. The inquisitorial legal corpus has its manual, its Vulgate, of which abridged versions were published, in particular an anonymous translation published by the French abbot Morellet in 1762, and significantly entitled, I give the title in English, The Manual of the Inquisitors for the Use of the Inquisitions of Spain and Portugal, or the abstract of the work entitled Directorium Inquisitorium. The author, Morellet, sent at the time a copy to Voltaire, who, after reading it, praised this honest ecclesiastical for his zeal for the good cause. But what could be added here is that the contemporaneous edition of this abbreviated directorium is an excellent introductory to the information, basic information about the Inquisition and its activities and procedures. Last edition, a complete vernacular and critical edition of the Emmerich and Peña Directorium, 1578, and further editions is still lacking. This is not a call for paper, it's just to remember this. Between the end of the 14th century, Emmerich, and the end of the 16th century, Peña, the question of Judaism and Jews and or neo-Christians became central to the Inquisition. Let's just compare Emmerich's text on the left about the heresy, the errors of the Jews, Errores Judaeorum, and Emmerich Peña on the right. From the about 120 words in Emmerich, we turn to Peña's index with 19 entries referring to 18 pages. But within the book, there are many more references to Judaism and Jews. In the Iberian Peninsula, the repression against conversos and new Christians is particularly ferocious. In Spain, it is the bulk of the Inquisition's early activity. Some data, for example, on this point. Barcelona, more than 90% of cases at the period you can see were for Jewish heresy. Same thing for Valencia, a bit less, but it's very significant of the repression of Judaism in the early decades of the Spanish Inquisition. Things change in the 17th century, and Henry Kamen, the historian of the Spanish Inquisition, in the chapter entitled Imágenes de Sefarad, concludes on the, I quote, high number of cases of Judaism. Okay, high is a weak epithet according to the Portuguese reality. Both Iberian countries, Spain and Portugal, had inquisitorial activity overseas. In one continent for Spain, with 3 inquisitions. As to the Portuguese one, we can distinguish on the one side Africa and Asia. I remind you the map we had before, and on the other, Europe and America. Then Judaism in Guinea represents 37% of the cases processed. In Goa, according to the reportorio you may know, of the cases, we have a bit less than 4% of the cases and a low presence of new Christians in the territory. This repertorio until 1623 has a bit more than 8,000 registers. In contrast to these territories of the Portuguese Empire, and for the whole period of the existence of the Holy Office, unlike the Inquisition of Nuestros Hermanos, Judaism is a permanent concern, not to say an obsession, for the 3 courts of Coimbra, Lisbon, and Évora. To add here that Lisbon has jurisdiction over crimes committed in Brazil and Angola, as we said. The Inquisition, since its appearance in the south of what is now France, but was not at the time, in the 3rd decade of the 13th century, had to achieve an office qualified as holy. Hence, the full expression of court of the Holy Office of the Inquisition. One or other expression is commonly used, Holy Office or Inquisition. Their task of the Inquisition was to inquire in order to extirpate the heretica pravitas, the error heresy. The Latin notion of pravitas covers the semantic field of what is first physically deformed or irregular, and then the idea of error, of vice, and bad mental disposition. Francisco Peña clearly asks, is not the crime of heresy the greatest, the most serious among the most horrible crimes? Of course, Francisco. To summarize the Portuguese activity of the tripartite institution, let's advance the following syllogism. The Inquisition fights against heresy. Minor. Judaism is the #1 heresy. Conclusion. The Portuguese Inquisition fights mainly against Judaism. This may sound simplistic, but it's all a matter of procedures according to an extensive legal corpus, some articles of which date back to the first Christian ecclesiastical legislations. A few more data to illustrate the anti-Jewish specificity of the Portuguese Inquisition from the 16th to the 19th century. I accelerate a bit because I see that time is passing and I want place for the talk. I'm so sorry. To compare, we have Venice Inquisition, 2%, Naples, 2%, Aragon, Castilla, 10%. To take only the case of the court of Évora until the end of 17th century, the crime of Judaism represents 84% of the accusations. At a micro-sociological level, for the whole period of the Holy Office in Portugal, health professionals, from the physician to the cristaleira, that is the woman providing enemas, are almost 79% accused of Judaism. Or even this last number, questioning the trials opened before 1536 and taken over by the Inquisition from 1536. Out of a total of 14 located, 10, that is 71%, are with people accused of Judaism. In the middle of the 20th century, the anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish obsession can be evocated through two fates under Salazar dictatorship, and you know about whom I'm going to speak. Arthur de Barros Basto, prosecuted by a military court and eventually excluded from the army, and Aristide de Sousa Mendes, a diplomat placed in inactivity. And
oh, mano, desculpa.
There is a knife. Okay, thank you. As far as the project Trapping is concerned, it is assumed that the issue of anti-Semitism for 3 centuries in Portugal was the ultra-majority source for the production of files. That is, documents resulting from a criminal action launched against individuals. The accused were forced to denounce in order to get off the hook a little more from the suspicions that, as a matter of principle, weigh on them. On him, the accused. An individual case is often one part of a human constellation, family, neighbors, others close to them. Warren Anderson writes in a bit exaggerated way, in 1497, all Jews had to be baptized, leave, or be killed in Portugal. What is certain is that the charge of heresy, which is mostly synonymous with Judaism in the 3 jurisdictions, does not only apply to those suspected of practicing the religion prohibited in the kingdom since December 5, 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. 1496. This accusation is also brought against anyone who in one way or another is seen as favoring it. Anyone who helps a heretic, for example, by communicating a letter between the prisoner and those close to him outside the prison, denouncing the Holy Office actions, or resisting its intervention, etc. All conduct being strong indications of a crime. The Inquisition is a complex bureaucracy with simple principles. The example I wanted to address here is that of the mobility of heretics. As you know, historically, after 1492, as in 1940, Portugal was a place of migration of Jews. Let me just allude to World War II through Nicholas Ullmann's beautiful film, Under the Sky, in 2018, about young Jews in this country refuge. The crime often pointed out is that of impeding the ministry of the Holy Office. In Portuguese, they say, impedir o reto ministério do Santo Ofício. In this regard, I would like now to dwell on the case of escape and aiding escape. This issue was already well known to the Spanish Inquisition. As François Soyer writes, I'm sorry, I will read what you can see. This mobility of individuals across oceans and territories constituted a problem for an organization whose objective was to police the circulation of religious ideas and particularly to prevent the spread of heretical beliefs from Europe to overseas colonies. This situation was openly acknowledged by contemporaries. As early as 1508, a Castilian royal edict prohibited the emigration to the New World of the descendants of Jews and Muslims burnt or reconciled up to the 4th generation. So, to prevent the spread of heresy, as you can see, is the other side of the Church universal mission of spreading the faith, de propaganda fide in Latin, which is the very name of various cardinal commissions established in the 16th century, and finally of the congregation of the same name, founded in Rome in 1622. To help the heretic is to be suspected of heresy. According to the Directorium Inquisitorium, protecting a heretic has a consequence. Beside the condemnation of the criminal, the destruction of the house in which the heretic was lodged. This point is reaffirmed by Peña in 1578, who goes back to the jurisprudence of Frederick II, the Holy Roman Emperor, and of the popes. In the same way, favoring a heretic can consist in helping them to escape. There are numerous cases that contemplate this criminal mobility. We all know to what extent the clandestine crossing of borders can turn to a desperate and tragic reality of our times. Speaking of the Portuguese harassed by the Inquisition in the 18th century, Gala recalls that many found their solution in flight. This is not done without the help of others, of course. A well-known case is that of the smuggler Gaspar Lopes da Costa. Sailing between Lisbon and London, he took clandestines on board. Two historians, Antonio Andrade and Maria Fernandes Guimarães, have analyzed cases of smugglers of Jews in the northwestern Portuguese area in the first half of the 17th century. Given the geographical situation, it is a matter of Coimbra's jurisdiction. Therefore, the prisoners caught ended up in the dungeons of the still partially existing building between Rua da Sofia in Coimbra and the Inquisition courtyard, Pátio da Inquisição. This is the map of the Coimbra Inquisition, and on the left you can see remains of the old building visible from outside. Those who reached the other side of the border must also take account of the collaboration between the Iberian Inquisitions, as shown by the case of the Eberens Custodio Nunes in 1609, 1605. At the arrival of the familiars who were supposed to arrest him, he fled to Seville. He was later denounced and extradited, and his trial could begin. Finally, the stories that are told through the interrogatories of accused, incite us to quote Tamar Herzog about the Portuguese borders. And I quote her in her book on the Raya, on the Portuguese-Spanish border. Even at the end of the 18th century, and even in Europe, some parts of the territories and large sections of the borders remained relatively unknown, inaccessible, and poorly controlled. We still know about the porosity of the borders, but the Inquisition imprinted in minds a special border, making everyone a border guard, as an anti-heretic whistleblower. To denounce, I already reminded, was the duty of every good Christian. The cases, to come back to them, the cases followed by Andrade and Guimarães are based on the reading of 30 cases, 30 files, court files from the Inquisition of Goa. What you can see here is a map Michelin used, and I have tried to mark with in pink color the villages and the cities like Mogadoro on the south, which is a big central place for before leaving Portugal, and some various villages near the frontier, but mostly within the Raya, which is the zone, the frontier, the border zone between the two kingdoms, where these trial processes refer to as places of resting or arresting as well. The accusations in these files are of two types, and only two types. One, apostasy, Judaism, or heresy. Two, impeding the rightful ministry of the Holy Office. Both cases, 15 of each. In the second case, impeding the rightful ministry of the Holy Office, all are male. 7 of the accused are old Christians, 3 of whom are priests, and 1 a judge. As Peña stipulates, those who visit heretics, keep them, or assist or accompany them will be legitimately considered as heretics. The suspicions in this case are strong enough to justify heresy prosecutions alone. So some questions arise here. Why does the second type of accusation, impeding, replace the first one? And what are the consequences on the possible range of convictions, knowing that in practice, the inquisitor must take care of the social status of the accused? I'll conclude now. From a general point of view, digitized and non-digitized trial records under the accusation of the second type, impeding the rightful ministry of the Holy Office, so to say, the office of the Holy Office, total 643 cases, 2 of which in the civil. That is 1.6% of the total of the processes, 40,000, I said. A same order of magnitude can be observed at the level of the Inquisition of Évora, where until 1668, with 1.4% of the total. So obviously, these numbers do not reflect the migratory flows, since this crime covers other behaviors. But one certainty remains. Behind an accusation like this one or other one, there is a lot to discover once so many records were not yet consulted from the inside. So thank you for not only hearing, but mostly for talking now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Obrigada, Hervé. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Now I will open the discussion. If anyone have questions, please raise the hand, the virtual hand here in Zoom, and put your questions or commentaries. Se alguém tiver alguma pergunta ou comentário, pedia para levantar aqui a mão virtual aqui do Zoom para fazer aqui as questões ou deixar algum comentário.
Hi, Carla.
Hi, Ton.
Hi, Hervé.
Hi.
Thank you for organizing this and presenting this. I have a basic question. How do you define Western Sephardim? Are they the ones who came from Portugal and only those, or is it broader?
Okay, this question is for me.
For one of you.
Okay, I define Western Sephardim as those new Christians and conversos who came from Portugal and Spain and then settled in Europe and in the colonies outside Europe, and then converted to Judaism. So this is a terminology that distinguish this Western Sephardim of the so-called Eastern Sephardim, that are those Jews that left Portugal and Spain after the expulsion and did not convert to Christianity after this process. This is basically the distinction between Western Sephardim and Eastern Sephardim.
Thank you.
I would like to put a question to Hervé, colocar aqui uma questão. It's more logical. I'd like to listen a little about the way how you will handle with the huge variety of handwriting of the Inquisition trials to build this text recognition model. I know the answer, but now I'd like to listen your opinion.
Yeah. Okay, in technical terms, you want
yes.
It's a technical question. Well, what I showed is the first page on the website of ReadCop. If you want, I just show it again. Yes. First, I have to share the screen. That's it. That's one. And I share. Sorry for this. Okay, let's go. Can you see? I just project this one. Well, this is the door, the main entry. Transcribus is a platform for transcription. So the work technically is transcribe line after line, text region after text region. You have just an example in front of you. It's transcribed exactly as it is, respecting the layout. What is handwritten on the right, to enter a number of datas sufficient to get a trained model. If you work with ancient prints, which what I did, prints from 17th century, you also need to use a good character recognition. So HTR is excellent for this. It's the same procedure. So transcribe a sufficient number of data, that is a number of words, a number of images. Every page is an image. Every image has words. Every word must be transcribed line after line, text region after text region, and be trained until obtaining a model. I can't say you in precise quantities how much you need according to what you want to do, but what we are going to do with TrapRink, which is to obtain quite a good model that is with what we call a character error rate, that is on 100% of a perfect text. You have, if you have a character rate of 5%, it means you have 5 errors in your text of 100. For example, 100 characters, 5 characters are wrong. So it's an excellent rate, and we can obtain much better. It depends on the quantity of data and the quality of the data you entered in the system. But technically, individually speaking, you are in front of your laptop, you are in Transcribus, or other platforms exist. This for me is the best with functionalities and so on. But principally, you are in front of your laptop, you transcribe, and you give the machine the data she needs as much as it is necessary. For TrapRink, normally about 1 million words, 1 million of words will be necessary to obtain. I had a meeting yesterday with one of our consultants who is precisely of Transcribus, the chair of Transcribus. And well, when I explained to him that 1 million words, he said, it's okay. It will be a good, we'll have good results. Yes. So
yes, and the idea is to in this project in TrapRink use different samples of handwriting to teach the machine to read that handwriting.
Yes, I have spoken about the quantity, no, the quality. Yes, quality. No, I'm trying to make a sentence that is syntactically complicated for me. The more difference, the greatest variety of hands is the better. Yes, of course. So we are working on code trials. That is, well, these are documents quite standardized about their contents, of course. Their structure and so on. This is not interesting. What interests us is precisely the fact that we are going to transcribe 2 pages by the same hand, and then 2 other pages by another hand. So the ideal will be about 5,000 pages resulting from 2,500 binomes, let's say, 2 pages of different hands. This will be easily found because with the 18,000 court trials that we have, within every court record, trial record, we have many hands at work. So, well, the principle of the quality is variety, and the quantity is, of course, the number of words to be transcribed. And
okay, now we have a question
to the machine.
You are without. You need to activate your.
Okay.
Yes. Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. Yes, I'll repeat. Hello, Carla.
Hello.
Hello, Hervé. Thank you for this very interesting talk. I just wanted to ask, how many are you going to be using existing transcriptions? Because some of these Inquisition records must have been transcribed. In fact, I know that you have some transcriptions on your website for the one of your previous websites, Carla. And would those help in speeding up the training process? rather than doing it from scratch? I mean, are you planning to use existing transcriptions?
This is, I can answer yes, of course, but there is one point absolutely decisive in the transcription procedure, is that the image should be of good quality.
Yeah,
that's all. You can have maybe you have transcriptions of files, but you succeeded in transcribing them, although their quality was bad. Yes, but no, we can't use such images.
no.
The images should be of good quality and good resolution, of course. That's all.
Yeah, I was more thinking, is it a shortcut in a way? Because, you know, if you sit down and transcribe from scratch, from zero, of course you can do that. But if there are already existing transcriptions of images that are quite good, then that will give you a shortcut to towards your training model.
I will see. Yeah.
Hopefully.
No, you're
Good
right.
idea.
Of course. I would say for our project, well, the necessities are quite well managed and provided and foreseen. Well, we'll see, but you're right. The other thing is, for me, this kind of problems will happen after, in the second phase, which will be a participative phase also, so a huge one, big one. So let's not talk. We're making something, some tool, some very powerful tool. Will be of good quality, of course, ultimate quality, but a tool. This tool, well, then after, like, let's make a great car. Well, so later we need good roads and good drivers and so on. So, and things can happen. But for the moment, technically, the great transcription of, so the edition, of course, we are going to edit historically edition of these documents, and other will come, of course, after. But we need to make this model, and with this model, there will be, of course, things that will need the human eye more than the machine analysis, of course, because of this problem of quality. But this, well, we have such a big thing in front of us. So yeah, let's do things step by step. I think this first step is decisive, but it's not the end of all, of course. But you're right. You're right.
Thank you.
More questions? Comments? Done?
Myself. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Once you have this model, it's working well, would you be able to use it for those Inquisition files that are of bad quality, of which there are a lot?
Sorry, I didn't hear what the end of your question.
There are a lot of badly conserved Inquisition files with the text from the other side shining through. Yes. Will your model work for that?
We'll see. We'll see. It will depend. Yes, the problem of resolution is very important here. So maybe we'll need some treatments, image treatments. There are tools also, but maybe, yes, of course. For the moment, to make a model which will be very useful for the majority of the cases, we are going forward. There is no problem at all. This, we'll see. This will be, we'll need, of course, we'll need after, but I'll be very happy when we have a model. Of course, this will be already a very great thing. So it won't resolve all the problems, and there will be problems that we cannot think about yet, of course, but it's worth it's worth the work. It's really worth, but you're right. Yes.
Ton, you have.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
One
it's
more
okay.
question for me. What are you going to do with abbreviations? Will you let them stand in your Word text, or will you write them out completely?
Well, there is a paleographical rule for transcription on Transcribus where they do not recommend to resolve abbreviations. In our case, and it's question about we have been talking yesterday, of course. It is recommended to resolve abbreviations, but once we are not doing a diplomatic edition, but edition for historical use. In this case, it's recommended, yes, once abbreviations are kind of standard abbreviations. So this is one of the things with the team we'll have to decide and toward a protocol, because every situation of this case is a case, of course. The model will turn public, of course. It will be improved. It will be helpful for other kind of documents, because there are not only the court trials, of course, and so on. But this question will be certainly resolved in this direction. The resolution of most abbreviation, yes. Mm-hmm. And the spaces between the words also is a problem in 16th century manuscripts, in our case.
Okay, Hervé. Hervé, have you another question?
Who, me?
Yes, you have the,
Okay,
the
okay,
answer.
sorry. Yes, I do. Yes, sorry. Yes, I was going to ask, what time frame are you planning to sample for your training model? For the whole 300 years, or within a more specific time frame? How are you spreading that out?
Are you asking about time frame of the project? That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Well, an exploratory project of this kind is 18 months.
No, not that. No. I mean, for the period of the Inquisition files that you're looking at, are you starting in 1500 all the way to 1750, or are you doing?
Okay, of the documents. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All
Just
all decades, yes.
All of them, yeah.
Hence the necessity of variety of hands to be transcribed. Yes. Mm. Okay. The team covers the whole period from the 15th to the 19th century. Yes, the team covers the whole.
Fantastic. Period. Yeah, I must say it's a very ambitious project. I'm really looking forward to the outputs. Yeah.
Please keep in touch, because well, during this phase, so maybe I don't know how we'll manage interests from outside the team, but after everything will have to be done.
Yes.
You know what I mean. So yeah. Do you know this, for example, the front the page?
I'm sorry, what?
I think they are from colleagues from Texas University. So it's very interesting, because this is not a platform for transcription, but this is a platform for participative collaborations toward transcriptions. And some groups, maybe in high schools or in universities or in the civil community, in the community, there are extremely many projects about things that interest them, of course, and many of them are working with Transcribus also. So Transcribus is not the central place. It is for us, of course, because it's our tool, but it's also a place you can use, being in another kind of participative framework, for example. And from the page is interesting on that point of view. It's not the only one, but as I know them, I know this.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Yes,
I'll look it up. Yeah,
it's obvious. Well, to make a tool, such a tool, we have to do it with a team. But after it will be an international. In the team, we have Brazilian colleagues, of course, and there in Brazil they make fantastic things. There is one model being made on a specific period of the Inquisition in Brazil by Lucia Xavier.
Xavier, yes, I know of that.
You know her, yes.
Yeah.
Well, she's doing the same. Finally, she's doing the same. She entered our team also. So, but of course, this is so huge that it will be participative. It will have to be participative and not a kind of academic elitist project, of course.
Great. Thank you.
Won't happen. Thank you.
We have here a question in the chat by David Silveira. Will you make the model public so that others researching the Inquisition files may use it?
It's more than a wish. It's a necessity. It would be completely absurd not to turn it public. In Transcribus, you have more than 12,000 models trained. In Transcribus, only 100 are public. I have put my model, but it's about 17th century Portuguese prints. My model is public, of course. It's our deontology also. It's our professional obligation. And if it was not professional obligation, it should be a human obligation. Yes, of course. And it's to turn it public is precisely to allow its improvements. So have a look on the public at the website of Transcribus and have a look at the model page. You'll see they are extremely interesting, extremely varied. So it's, well, when they speak about revolution, digital revolution, it's not an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration. It modifies deeply our relationship to the archive, to the handwritten text. Profoundly, deeply. And when I say we, it's not only we from the academic world, from everywhere, from the civil society. You see, well, and have a look at, if you are interested in Transcribus, have a look at Transcribus Lite, because this is maybe the place where we'll work also. It's an application of Transcribus, useful in your smartphone, for example. So, well. We enter these human fates of the 16th or other century in our smartphones, these tragedies in our smartphone. This is what will happen.
Okay, I think that there is no more questions. I would like to thank Hervé. Obrigada, Hervé, mais uma vez. I'd like to thank everybody who are here today. WSD Talk will be back in March. We'll give more information soon about this session. So keep an eye in our social media and our website. So thank you. Muito obrigada e espero ver-vos então no próximo WSD Talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all. Thank you.